So I think we talked a bit about how 20 years ago was a long time in Singapore's history. But for me, I think what really struck me was that actually a lot of the themes explored in this film are very, very relevant even today. I think I was just very struck by that, and I'm not sure things have actually changed that much, actually, 20 years on.
Yeah.
What are the themes you're referring to?
Wow, there's a lot in this movie, but I guess there's the underbelly and how people are living, that people don't fit in the idea of success in Singapore, and how their lives are, or perhaps maybe about how we don't shine a light on these people and we just kind of push them into the shadows. I think that resonated very strongly with me, even like today in Singapore. I think we still have some of these issues.
You feel that way in Singapore? That there are people on the margins?
I think we don't hear about them a lot, and I think, well, this is just my interpretation, I guess, and I think it's just not very shown or very visible a lot of the times. I'm sure there are a lot of these, but it's just that it's not in the media, it's not even in film, it's just not around, but it's very present everywhere, but we just push it out of sight, I guess.
I guess in a very generalized way, you would say that great films or great works of art will speak across different times. But the one thing that you pointed out then was how do the outsiders fit in? And I think historically you can look at it as yes, the themes in that very large way do apply in the 90s, apply now as well. But our relationship to that is very, very different now today, I think. I mean, I guess part of the reason some of you guys are here at least is to look at this underbelly, but the underbelly I think in the 90s versus the underbelly today is not only constitutes different kinds of elements, but our relationship is very different, and I think today we are also quite drawn to the underbelly in a very sexy marketing kind of credo, whereas maybe in the past it was something that you might proactively say, no, I'm going to chase my Singapore economic dream and I don't want to have anything to do with these people. But today it's also kind of, I feel that at least, and this is my unqualified remark, that we do have this sort of more consumerist approach now to the underbelly, that it is something that can be consumed and reclaimed as part of how culture appropriates the margins into. And I feel like today it is quite sexy to talk about underbelly, which in some ways makes it quite boring lah. So anyway.
Okay, maybe just add to that point something that maybe you can actually take in the context in the Singapore's way. I've shown you all these pictures, and maybe after Mee Pok Man, the government kind of cleaned it up quickly. But one of the more interesting part about Singapore urban planning is what Professor Chua Beng Huat describes as interiorized poverty. So the place is kept superficially clean, but your poverty is kept indoors. So this is something quite timeless, So all the bad things are done indoors, but the cityscape still remains fine. You can see all these HDB buildings coming up. The MRT was smooth going through this monolithic landscape. Although you can see the difference that, how quiet the MRT was in 1995. Going through from Yio Chu Kang to Ang Mo Kio Station. There were only like 2 people sitting there, George and Samantha. Yeah, but I think otherwise it's actually quite a time. The themes are very timeless, and actually more acute probably in today's terms. Yeah,
Yeah, maybe from the filmmaking sort of perspective.
No, I just wanted to say that back then the nightclub girls were either locals or Malaysians.
Yeah.
Now you go to Thai disco, it's China, Vietnamese. In fact, you go to Tiong Bahru coffee shops, some of these coffee shops, after midnight, they all come out, they all have supper. Same thing. If you make Mee Pok Man tour today, instead of bunny, we probably have a China girl, or Vietnamese girl. Probably, living alone with a Singaporean tenant who peeps at her while she was showering, the same way that Bunny's little brother was peeking at her. Underbelly exists lah. You know, you don't have to romanticize whether it's cool or not. It does exist. I mean, I live in a 3-room HDB flat. You know, it's part of my life. Yeah.
Is there a response to what all of them have said? Or maybe a response to that the gentleman's sort of comment that maybe things haven't changed as much? Or are you all agreeable to that as well? Yeah, some nods here. Yeah. So did you have any other sort of questions about maybe not just the film, but, oh yes.
Okay, there's this scene at the end of the film where even though Bunny is dead, Mee Pok Man still keeps her body. So I'm just very curious to know what is the significance of this scene and how does it relate to the issue of the underbelly of society in Singapore?
Why do you want the Mee Pok Man to do? You want him to call police? No.
It's just a bit
Okay.
surreal.
But why did Mee Pok Man bring the girl home instead of to the hospital?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, it's all based on that short story written by Damien Sin about necrophilia. How can you have necrophilia when you bring her to the hospital, right? So you can ask all day long about these kind of questions, but in the end, it's really what the director and what the script writer really feel they want to tell or really want to show the audience. Maybe Eric just wants to shock you guys. Or maybe he himself has a certain longing for such things. If you notice Eric's films, it's even this one and 12 Story, there's hints of, incest in both. So, I haven't asked Eric about this kind of questions, but it's interesting. You can probe him next time when you see him.
Okay, I just want to add, I think if you put it in a kind of, analyze it in a kind of psychological viewpoint, it's part of the ideas of desire of possession that you want to keep, you want to hold on to something that has really lost its purpose and meaning in itself. Speaking of this necrophilia, so last year, during Lee Kuan Yew's funeral, I actually showed this, not intentionally actually, it was part of the syllabus. And one student came up, after the whole thing was over, and he was very angry and he said, see, this is what they are doing to Lee Kuan Yew, They couldn't release him, this is what Mee Pok Man was about too, So it became kind of timeless in some ways.
I personally just felt it dragged on a bit too long. Actually, after they had actually died, I think it could have ended in 10 minutes. But, I guess he was, as Martyn said, he was very interested in that sort of thing. I look at the special effects. I watched it, in 2002 or something after watching a lot of Asian film classes. And it was not by any means convincing then that it's quite lousy special effects wise. So I thought it was a bit draggy, but at the same time, I also admired the persistence and the endurance to keep beating up this body.
No, we completely agree with you. Me and Eric I think that 10 minutes could be cut from this film. Eric thinks about 20 minutes could be cut from this film. It was due to my inexperience and also because we didn't have much time to edit this. I did it over 2 weekends at my workplace at night when my boss was not around. Back then, the non-linear editing has just come into the market and it's a big-ass Mac Avid. So I had to work through the night over 2 weekends to finish the first cut of this film. And it was also due to my inexperience because I thought that the film was going to underrun, that we wouldn't be able to make 90 minutes. So I kept every shot as long as possible. And also because I was influenced by Ho Xiaoxian, right? If you watch Ho Xiaoxian's film, every single take goes on for 2-3 minutes, right? I thought that's cool for art films, right? So I just hang on the shots longer. Yeah, it's just basically that. So, on hindsight, yes, I could have cut 10 minutes off of it easily, especially of Joe walking around. Although if I cut that off, he won't have anything to say today, right?
Okay. Are there any? Yes, we have one from.
Hi, I'm just gonna ask because I kind of watched this and going by what Martyn has said, you know, it's all about like coming together of like music, etc. I'm just thinking like, and we're talking about revisiting the past in terms of like places, as well as like the use of the body in terms of like instrumentalization, etc. But I'm just thinking like, what are the panel's thoughts about, you know, Singapore's film going forward? When we're talking about the underbelly and stuff like that, there are lots of you know, young local filmmakers who are still kind of looking into stuff like that, but it's just not as apparent as the past. So I'm just curious about what are your thoughts about like how authentic it can be as well, because we have, you know, how the underbelly is becoming sort of like the new cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a very good question. What you're saying is, can the sensibilities and the sensitivity of something like Mee Pok Man be made today? Not just by Eric Koo, but by any other filmmaker. I think it's hard. Back then, we didn't have to rely on MDA for money. And we were not influenced by anything else other than the music that we listened to and the films that we like. So we just did it very pure DIY attitude of just putting a film out because we like it, and also to perhaps help the film industry to grow. If today, I think people think too much. You know, they get MDA funding and they think, oh, will MDA allow this? If I put in dialect, you know, maybe it'll get censored. If I talk about Lee Kuan Yew, oh, maybe they'll come down on me. You know, there's all this overthinking. So it's a very good question. I would like to see a very pure-hearted filmmaking process happen with other filmmakers here, as with what we did with Mee Pok Man. But I think it's increasingly difficult, especially with the internet, and you're always wondering what would people say. You know, they're always wondering about your own reputation. Yeah, once you start thinking about your own ego, how the box office will happen, and whether you'll travel in the film festivals, and then you become a little bit more contrived in your ideas. So it gets filtered. So that we have to look out for. If you are any filmmakers here, you have to look out for your intentions in making films. So, yeah. Like I was just listening to Prince today, right? I'm a big fan of his, so he died yesterday, right? So I'm just wondering, how come he can't replicate that brilliant music that he did in Purple Rain? You know, after 30 over years, he still can't replicate that power that he did with Purple Rain. So sometimes an artist has his moments, and once that moment's passed, you know, you can't go back to that. Yeah, I don't think Eric can make another Mee Pok Man today. Yeah, after making several films, a few more films after this. Yeah.
Well, I can add maybe that I think Martyn is a cool artist. So when he talks about it, it's like, you know, it's just a few people get drunk and then make a film, and then. But therein also it lies the kind of idea that the artist is a genius in and of himself within those times, and those moments come or go. I would prefer actually for us to contextualize and think about Mee Pok Man as the artwork of its time. And if you talk about DIY culture, it was DIY was going on not just in film, but also in music with hardcore, with rock and everything else. And even a lot of the performance and theater, forum theater and everything, a lot of that was all DIY kind of culture. People didn't have money, didn't have shit, didn't have anything, but they just went ahead and did something. And I think that's what we mean when we talk about kind of a cultural moment which artists emerge out of. And so I think that was a very particular and interesting moment in Singapore. It's the part where we start to contest the idea of the Singapore story, right? When people are not just unhappy enough for the government to just tell us what to do, but trying to reclaim bits of our identity. And I think it is quite true that just being able to do art in that time felt like a very rebellious, free moment as an individual. And you know, in the past also, in the 90s was the time when you talked about OB markers, out of bounds. Is that a golf? That's a golf term, is it? It's a golf term, but the ironic thing is, because the government will tell you, we've got OB markers, as long as you don't cross the OB markers, it's fine. But then they also don't want to tell you where the OB markers are. So it's this kind of cat and mouse game, which sometimes becomes a politics of the personal and a politics of the person. And that's for me, is kind of, let's look at the artworks that emerged there and then in that sort of historical context.
I just want to say this film is very subversive in the sense that the themes are really very perverse, right? Necrophilia, you got hints of incest there, you got prostitution. And to contrast it with what I went through with my own documentary film. I made a film about Khiun, right? And then the police came after me, and then you got banned and everything. I mean, we have this very kind of perverse culture of censorship here, where it's okay to be talking about stuff like this, but once you become political, yeah, then the line gets drawn very quickly. Yeah, I just want to make that point.
Yeah, so I hope that's answered your question to some extent. Are there any further questions? Because we have time, I think, for one last one.
Hi, just a very simple question, because this is my first time watching the screening of Mee Pok Man, and I have not read up or researched anything about it. And I mean, after watching it, it is a film that is quite hard to swallow. I mean, it deals with a lot of perverse themes, as you have mentioned. And I'm just curious, when it was first screened in 1995, what was the response from the public when the movie first came out? Was it well received? Did it spark any debates or, yeah? So.
Not the kind of debate relating to the themes of the film, surprisingly. Yeah, no one was outraged, really. And earlier in the talk, Alan mentioned about this incident whereby this artist snipped off a bit of his pubic hair during one of the performance art pieces. I was there, and when we saw it, there was a bunch, 200, 300 people there. When we saw it, there was nothing outrageous about it. But when new paper came out the next day sensationalizing it, then the government got mad, and then people got mad, and then performance art was banned for the next 10 years. Somehow, for the early 1990s, without the internet, when people watch it like that, direct experience with art, they don't think much of it. They don't feel that they're offended. But when now you have the internet, when people start talking, start rumor mongering, when people start adding spice into stories, and then the outrage happens. Yeah. So it's very strange. I don't know whether internet is actually good or bad sometimes. So I always say that you want to know a person or you want to know anything about a film, go watch it yourself and judge for yourself. That's the reason why I went out and met Khiun in 2005. I decided to see for myself what this guy like. Is he the way the media portrayed him to be? And I found him to be completely opposite. So I decided to humanize him in the film. And the government came down on me for that. So I think it's important to just watch it for yourself and decide for yourself and not rely on hearsay and social media talk,
Maybe I can just add historically. I mean, my personal memories, as I mentioned, told me that it was a wonderful film. It was the first time your own neighborhood was featured. It was the first time that you can hear the kind of profanities that it was unimaginable. But Mee Pok Man also came at a time with the film classifications that they were examining. So it was given an R21, right, Martyn? If I'm not RA21. So they were kind of like toying with that. First, in 1991, when the classifications that came out, all kinds of Hong Kong soft porn movies came in. There was those wonderful days that you can get in Ang Mo Kio and Toa Payoh, until the government kind of clamped down on it and limited it to the Yangtze. So Mee Pok Man also can be contextualized, the kind of reaction with the government film classification ratings that actually was introduced in the early 90s.
Eric was accused of making use of the classification to make a film to be as outrageous as possible in order to get RA. But Eric's answer is good in the sense that RA films don't make money. They really don't. If you look at the films that made a lot of money in the 1990s, they were PG films. The kids can watch and all that. So RA films don't really make money. So this film wasn't meant to take advantage of the classification system. It's just the way we felt, that we just needed to show unity. We just needed to show people snorting drugs. We just needed to show the kind of seedy life that nightclub girls go through. Yeah.
Right. Okay, thank you so much. I think we've really covered a whole gamut of issues, and I hope that it's given you a lot more thought. And I think just from the topics that we've touched on, it just shows how much Mee Pok Man has had or has a legacy for us. So do encourage your friends and if they've not watched the film, because I think there's one more screening of it.
It's sold out.
It's sold out. I'm sorry.
We're considering opening more screenings, so
Fantastic.
Do look
Okay.
out for that.
Yeah, and just want to thank everyone for being here this afternoon, and to our panelists, Martyn, KK, and Alan, for spending time with us and giving us their thoughts on the film. And also that if you're interested in other sorts of events and talks that the Asian Film Archive hosts, as well as with projectors as well, do keep sight of on events that's coming up from our websites and our Facebook pages, right? And so thank you very much, and have a great Saturday and Sunday ahead. All right.